The last thing Nathan Foster expected to see when he walked into Bella Notte that freezing February afternoon was his ex-wife laughing with 3 4-year-old boys who had his exact face. "Hi, my beautiful family. Welcome back to Linda's Stories. If grace carried you here today, like this video. If faith still lights your path, comment, 'I'm with Linda.' Let's begin." The restaurant smelled like garlic and fresh basil, steam fogging the windows against Chicago's bitter cold. Nathan unbuttoned his Burberry coat, scanning for Marcus Chen, his business partner. But his eyes locked on something that made his blood stop moving. A woman with rich brown skin and natural curls pulled back in a ponytail sat at a corner table. Her laugh bright and familiar in a way that punched him in the chest. Rachel. His Rachel. Except she wasn't his anymore. Hadn't been for 5 years, not since he'd signed those divorce papers in his lawyer's office without looking back. But it wasn't just Rachel that froze him in place. It was the 3 identical boys circling her like satellites, their copper-red hair catching the warm light from the Edison bulbs overhead. Red hair, like his. Green eyes, like his. The same pointed chin, the same way their eyebrows drew together when they concentrated on the crayons scattered across the table. Triplets. 4 years old, maybe. 5 at most. Nathan's hand gripped the back of an empty chair, so hard his knuckles went white. 5 years since the divorce. 5 years since he'd walked away from their Lincoln Park townhouse and never looked back. Too angry about her supposed betrayal. Too proud to listen when she'd tried to explain. 4 years ago, she would have been pregnant. Very pregnant. With his children. 3 of them. "Sir, can I help you find your table?" A hostess materialized at his elbow, her smile professional and concerned. Nathan barely heard her. His feet were already moving, carrying him across the black and white checkered floor toward that corner table, toward Rachel and those 3 boys who were drawing dinosaurs and arguing about whether a T-Rex could beat a Triceratops. The closer he got, the more details emerged. The way the middle boy held his crayon in that weird grip Nathan had never been able to fix in himself. The way the boy on the left had a tiny scar above his eyebrow. The way the one on the right hummed while he colored, off-key and completely absorbed. Rachel. His voice came out rough, broken glass over gravel. She looked up slowly and there wasn't surprise in her dark eyes. Just a weary kind of resignation, like she'd been expecting this moment and dreading it in equal measure. The restaurant noise faded. The clatter of dishes, the murmur of other diners, the smooth jazz playing through hidden speakers, all of it disappeared into white noise. Nathan. She said his name like a fact, neutral and careful. The boys stopped their debate, 3 sets of green eyes swiveling toward him with identical curiosity. Nathan felt like he was looking into a mirror that showed him 30 years ago, right down to the dusting of freckles across their noses. "Who's that, Mommy?" the boy on the right asked, tilting his head. His voice was high and sweet, and Nathan's chest felt like someone had reached inside and squeezed. Rachel's jaw tightened. She set down her water glass with deliberate care, and when she looked at Nathan again, her eyes were cold as the February wind outside. "Nobody important, sweetheart. Just someone Mommy used to know." Nobody important. The words hit harder than any slap. Nathan pulled out the empty chair at their table without asking permission and sat down, his legs suddenly unreliable. Up close, he could see the faint circles under Rachel's eyes, the way her Loyola University hoodie hung loose on her frame like she'd lost weight. She'd always been curvy and proud of it. Now she looked worn down, and guilt twisted in his stomach, even though he didn't know yet what he was guilty of. "They're mine, aren't they?" He kept his voice low, aware of the 3 pairs of young ears listening. The boys had gone back to their coloring, but the middle one kept glancing up, sensing the tension even if he couldn't name it. Rachel laughed, but there was no humor in it. "You want to do this here? Now? In front of them?" "You didn't give me a choice." Nathan's hands shook. He shoved them under the table. 4 years old? 4 and 3 months. The math clicked into place with brutal precision. 5 years since the divorce, 9 months of pregnancy. They were his, conceived right before everything fell apart, right before he'd gotten that anonymous email with photos of Rachel having coffee with her old college boyfriend, Marcus. Not his Marcus, a different Marcus entirely, and jumped to conclusions. He'd been so sure she was cheating, so certain. And when she tried to explain, he'd shut her down, called his lawyer, and started the paperwork the same day. "I came to your office," Rachel said quietly, her fingers tracing invisible patterns on the red checkered tablecloth. "I was 2 months along. You wouldn't see me. Your secretary said you'd left instructions I wasn't to be allowed up." Nathan remembered. He'd been so angry, so hurt. He'd blocked her from everywhere. Phone, email, the building security list. He'd wanted a clean break, wanted to salt the earth so nothing could grow there again. "I tried to tell you at the lawyer's office when we signed," she continued, her voice steady, but her hands trembling slightly as she picked up a green crayon one of the boys had dropped. "You remember what you said?" He did. He told her he didn't want to hear excuses. Told her whatever she had to say didn't matter anymore. Signed on the dotted line and walked out while she was mid-sentence, her voice breaking on words he'd refused to hear. "You were sick every morning." The memory hit him like a freight train. Those last few weeks before the divorce, Rachel had been pale, rushing to the bathroom at odd hours, claiming it was a stomach bug. He'd been too wrapped up in his suspicions and wounded pride to pay attention. "Hyperemesis gravidarum," Rachel said flatly. "Severe morning sickness. I was in the hospital twice before they even figured out it was triplets. My mom stayed with me the first 3 months because I couldn't keep anything down. Lost 15 pounds before I started gaining." The boy on the left looked up. "Mommy was sick when we were in her belly," he announced, like he was sharing a well-known fact. "Grandma says we made her super sick, but then we were super cute, so it was okay." Nathan couldn't breathe. "What are their names?" Rachel's expression shuttered. "That's not your business." "The hell it isn't. They're my sons." "Don't you dare raise your voice." Her words came out sharp and low, protective anger flaring in her eyes. The boys looked up again, alarmed, and she immediately softened, reaching out to smooth the closest one's hair. "It's okay, babies. The grown-ups are just having a discussion." Nathan forced himself to take a breath, then another. The smell of someone's lasagna at the next table made his stomach turn. "Please, tell me their names." She studied him for a long moment, weighing something he couldn't read. Finally, she gestured to the boy on the left. "Caleb," the middle one. "Jordan," the right. "Mason." Caleb, Jordan, Mason, his sons, 3 whole people he'd never met, never held, never watched, take their first steps or say their first words. 4 years of birthdays and scraped knees and bedtime stories, and he'd missed all of it. "I want to know them," Nathan said, and his voice cracked despite his best effort to hold it together. I want to be their father. Rachel's laugh was bitter. You signed away that right when you signed those papers. You made your choice. I didn't know. You didn't want to know. There's a difference. She started gathering the crayons, clearly preparing to leave. Come on, boys. Let's get your coats on. But we didn't get our pizza yet, Mason whined, his bottom lip pushing out in a pout that Nathan recognized from his own childhood photos. We'll get pizza somewhere else. I'll pay for lunch. Nathan's words tumbled out, desperate and clumsy. Please, just don't go yet. Let me just talk to you. You had 5 years to talk. You chose silence. Rachel stood up, helping Jordan into his little puffer jacket, the movements practiced and efficient. A mother who'd done this alone thousands of times, while Nathan had been building his real estate empire and taking meetings and sleeping with women whose names he forgot the next morning, trying to fill the Rachel-shaped hole in his chest with temporary fixes that never worked. Rachel, please. He stood too, blocking her path without meaning to, and immediately stepped back when he saw the flash of real fear in her eyes. God, she was afraid of him. Not physically, maybe, but afraid of what he represented, what he could do to the fragile world she'd built for herself and their sons. Caleb tugged on Rachel's sleeve. Mommy, why is the man crying? Nathan reached up and felt the wetness on his cheeks, surprised. When had that started? He wiped at his face roughly, embarrassed, but unable to stop looking at these 3 perfect little humans he'd helped create, and then abandoned without even knowing they existed. I'm sorry, he managed. I'm so sorry. Rachel's expression flickered, something painful and old moving behind her eyes. For just a second, he saw the girl he'd fallen in love with 8 years ago, the grad student who'd stolen his heart at a charity gala and made him believe in happy endings. Then it was gone, replaced by armor. Sorry doesn't change anything. She shouldered her purse and took Caleb and Jordan's hands, leaving Mason to grab onto her jacket. They moved as a unit, practiced and closed, a family that had learned to exist without him. Don't follow us, Nathan. But he did follow. Couldn't help it, watching them navigate through the restaurant. He saw the way other diners noticed the triplets and smiled, the way an elderly woman at the bar said something to Rachel that made her smile back, genuine and warm in a way she hadn't smiled at him. He watched through the frosted window as she buckled them into a navy blue Honda Odyssey that had definitely seen better days. The rear bumper held on with duct tape and hope. Rachel, who'd driven a Mercedes when they were married. Rachel, who'd had access to his bank accounts and his credit cards and had never once taken more than she needed. The Honda pulled away into Chicago traffic, red taillights disappearing into the gray sleet that had started falling. And Nathan stood there in the cold without his coat until Marcus finally found him 20 minutes later, teeth chattering and phone buzzing with missed calls. You look like you've seen a ghost, Marcus said, guiding him back inside. Nathan let himself be led to their original table, let Marcus order Scotch neat, and when it arrived, he downed it in one burning swallow. Not a ghost, something worse, the life I should have had. He told Marcus everything, the words pouring out in a desperate rush. The triplets, the missed chances, the divorce he'd rushed through like an idiot, too proud and too hurt to listen. Marcus listened without interrupting, and when Nathan finally fell silent, his friend let out a low whistle. You need a lawyer, a family lawyer, and you need to get your head on straight before you approach her again, because you scared her today and you know it. Nathan did know it, he'd seen it in her eyes. But beneath the fear and the anger, he'd also seen something else. A flicker of the old hurt, the old love that maybe hadn't died completely. Or maybe that was just wishful thinking. He pulled out his phone and opened Instagram, something he never used but kept for business purposes. He typed Rachel Monroe in the search bar, then remembered she might have changed her name back. Rachel Williams. There. Private account, but the profile picture was recent, her smile bright and genuine with the triplets posed around her at what looked like Navy Pier. He sent a follow request, even though he knew it would probably be ignored. Then he opened his contacts and found the number he'd blocked 5 years ago, unblocked it, and stared at it for a full minute before typing out a message. Please, I know I have no right to ask, but I need to see them again. I need to try to fix this. I'll do whatever it takes. He hit send before he could second-guess himself and watched the message go from delivered to read almost immediately. The 3 dots appeared, disappeared, appeared again. His heart hammered against his ribs. Finally, her response came through. You don't get to walk back into our lives just because you finally decided to pay attention. They don't even know who you are, and maybe it's better that way. Is that what you really want? Nathan typed back, his hands shaking. For them to never know their father? The response took longer this time, long enough that he ordered another scotch and pretended not to notice Marcus watching him with worried eyes. When his phone finally buzzed, Rachel's message was short and devastating. You were never going to be their father, Nathan. You were too busy being right to ever learn how to be wrong. But fine. You want to try? Prove you've changed. Lincoln Park Zoo, Saturday at 10. Don't be late. And Nathan, if you hurt them, if you make them feel for even 1 second like they're not enough, I will make sure you never see them again. Courts or no courts. Nathan read the message 3 times, then a 4th, Saturday. 2 days away. He had 2 days to figure out how to be the father he'd never planned to be, to make up for 4 years of absence, to prove to Rachel that he was capable of being the man she'd once believed he could be. His phone buzzed again. A photo this time. The triplets in footy pajamas, all piled on a couch that looked worn and comfortable, reading a book together. Mason was on Rachel's lap. Jordan leaned against her side, and Caleb was sprawled across both their legs. The caption read, "This is what you missed. Every single night for 4 years. Don't waste this chance." Nathan saved the photo, set it as his lock screen, and felt something break open in his chest. Not the clean break of the divorce, but something messier and more painful, like a wound that had healed wrong and needed to be opened again to heal right. Marcus squeezed his shoulder and signaled for the check. "Come on," his friend said. "Let's get you home. You've got a lot to figure out before Saturday." Nathan nodded, but he couldn't stop staring at that photo. His sons, his family, the life he'd thrown away without knowing what he was losing. Outside, the sleet had turned to snow, coating Chicago in white. And Nathan wondered if it was possible to start over when you'd burned everything down. He guessed he was about to find out. When he got home to his sterile penthouse overlooking the lake, everything looked different. The minimalist furniture, the expensive art, the floor-to-ceiling windows with their $1,000,000 view, all of it suddenly felt empty and cold. He'd built this life to prove he didn't need anyone, that he was fine alone, better than fine. But standing in his living room with snow swirling outside and that photo of his sons on his phone, Nathan finally admitted what he'd known deep down for 5 years. He wasn't fine. He'd never been fine. And he'd just been given a chance, probably the only chance he'd ever get, to become the person his children deserved. the person Rachel had needed him to be. He couldn't afford to screw it up. But God help him, he had no idea where to start. Saturday morning arrived wrapped in that particular kind of bright cold that made Chicago's winter almost beautiful. Nathan stood outside the Lincoln Park Zoo gates at 9:45, 15 minutes early because being late wasn't an option. He'd barely slept in 2 nights, spending Friday at a children's bookstore where he'd bought 7 picture books after standing paralyzed in the aisles for 20 minutes, and at a toy store where he'd almost bought out the entire dinosaur section before a patient saleswoman talked him down to 3 reasonably sized plush toys. Now those toys sat in a shopping bag at his feet, and the books were in his car, and Nathan felt like the most unprepared person on earth. His phone buzzed. Rachel's text was brief. Running 5 minutes behind, traffic on Lakeshore, don't leave. Like he could leave. Like he could do anything except stand here in the cold, watching families stream through the gates, and wonder if he'd recognize his own children in daylight. The temperature hovered around 25 degrees, and his breath came out in white clouds. He'd dressed carefully, trying to look approachable. Dark jeans, a navy sweater, his warmest coat. Nothing too businesslike, nothing intimidating. Just a man hoping to meet his sons. When the Honda Odyssey pulled up to the curb, Nathan's heart kicked into overdrive. He watched Rachel unbuckle the boys from their car seats, watched them tumble out in matching blue snow pants and different colored jackets, red, green, yellow, chattering over each other about penguins and polar bears. They hadn't noticed him yet, too focused on convincing their mother they didn't need to hold hands in the parking lot. Caleb, Jordan, Mason. Rachel's voice carried clearly in the cold air, firm but patient. What's the rule? Hold hands until we're inside, they chorused, though Mason was already trying to wiggle free. Rachel looked up then and caught Nathan's eye across the parking lot. Something passed over her face too quickly to read, and then it was gone, replaced by careful neutrality. She said something to the boys Nathan couldn't hear, and 3 identical faces swiveled in his direction. He raised a hand in an awkward wave, and immediately felt stupid, but Caleb waved back enthusiastically. "Is that the man from the restaurant?" Jordan asked, loud enough for Nathan to hear now that they were closer. "The one who made Mommy mad?" "I wasn't mad, baby, just surprised." Rachel's eyes never left Nathan's as they approached. "Boys, this is Nathan. He's, She faltered, and Nathan watched her struggle with words she'd probably been practicing for 2 days, just like he had. "He's your father." The silence that followed felt enormous. Nathan waited for something, recognition, happiness, anger, anything, but the boys just looked at him with open curiosity, the way they might look at any new adult in their world. Why would they react differently? They'd never seen him before. He was nobody to them. "Do you have a dad name?" Caleb asked, finally tilting his head. "Like Papa or Daddy or Pop-Pop?" Nathan's throat closed up. He managed, "You can call me whatever feels right to you." "What about Nathan?" Mason suggested pragmatically. "That's what Mommy called you." "Nathan works." He looked at Rachel helplessly. She'd crouched down to adjust Jordan's scarf, giving him a moment to collect himself. When she stood, he saw the same exhaustion in her face that he'd seen at the restaurant. She'd lost sleep too, he realized. This was hard for her in ways he was only beginning to understand. "So," Rachel said, her voice determinedly bright, "the zoo. Should we go in?" The next 2 hours existed in a strange, suspended reality. Nathan walked beside Rachel while the boys ran ahead, staying within her carefully established boundaries, but free enough to be excited. He learned that Caleb loved facts and could recite the diet of every animal they saw, that Jordan was shy but warmed up if you asked him to draw things, and that Mason had no sense of danger and tried to climb every barrier despite his mother's patient corrections. He learned that Rachel had gone back to school, was finishing her master's in education while working part-time at a non-profit. That they lived in Rogers Park in a 2-bedroom apartment she could barely afford, but it was close to a good school and her mother, and that mattered more than space. He learned that she'd done all of this alone, through pregnancy and infancy and toddlerhood, and the weight of that knowledge sat heavy in his chest. "Why didn't you try again?" Nathan asked quietly, while the boys were distracted by the snow monkeys. "To tell me, I mean. You could have called from a different number." "Shown up at my building." Rachel's hands tightened on the railing. "I did show up at your building. 4 times. Security turned me away every time. I sent letters to your office. They came back unopened. I tried, Nathan. For 3 months I tried. And then I was in my 2nd trimester, showing sick all the time, and I couldn't anymore. I couldn't keep begging you to listen. I'm listening now. 4 years too late." She turned to him, and the hurt in her eyes was so raw it hurt to see. "Do you have any idea what it was like? Being pregnant with triplets, no partner, no insurance because I'd been on your plan and the divorce canceled it, working 2 jobs to save up for the birth? My mom helped, thank God, but she's on a fixed income. We barely made it. I would have helped if I'd known, but you didn't want to know. That's the point, Nathan." "You decided I was guilty and you didn't care about anything else. Not my side of the story. Not why I'd been meeting Marcus." "Which Marcus?" Nathan interrupted, a sick feeling in his stomach. "Marcus Williams, my brother." Rachel's voice was flat. "My half-brother from my dad's first marriage. He just moved to Chicago and we were catching up. That's it. That's what you saw in those photos. Me having coffee with my brother while he told me about his messy divorce and asked for advice. But you never asked. You saw what you wanted to see and made up the rest." Nathan felt like he'd been gutted. "You have a brother?" "Had. Past tense. He died 2 years ago. Car accident." Rachel's voice cracked. "The boys never got to meet their uncle because their father decided I was a cheater based on some anonymous email and his own insecurity." "Rachel." Nathan reached for her, but she stepped back. "Don't, just don't." She wiped her eyes quickly, aware the boys might look over any second. "We're here because you have a right to know them. That's it. Don't mistake this for forgiveness." They finished the zoo in heavy silence, the boys' chatter filling the space between the adults. Nathan bought them hot chocolate at the cafe, and Mason spilled his all over Nathan's coat, bursting into tears. Nathan found himself on autopilot, reassuring the boy it was fine. Accidents happen. Watching Rachel watch him like she was cataloging every response for later evaluation. He realized this whole morning was a test. Every interaction, every word, she was measuring him against some standard he couldn't see, deciding if he was worth the risk. When they reached the parking lot again, the boys were tired and sugar-crashed, leaning against Rachel's legs while she tried to unlock the car. Nathan saw his chance evaporating, felt the panic rising. Can I see them again? The words came out too urgent, too desperate. Please, I want to do this again. Rachel got the car open and started buckling Mason in, her movements mechanical. I need to think about it. That's not fair. Fair? She rounded on him, and the anger that had been simmering all morning finally blazed free. "You want to talk about Fair? Fair was you refusing to hear me 5 years ago." "Fair was giving birth to triplets alone, while you were probably out celebrating being rid of me. Fair was explaining to my mother why her grandchildren don't have a father. Don't you dare talk to me about Fair." The boys had gone quiet in the car, sensing the adult storm. Nathan lowered his voice, forced himself to stay calm. "You're right. I'm sorry. I can't lose them now that I know they exist. I'll do whatever you want. Supervised visits, whatever makes you comfortable. Just don't shut me out." Rachel finished buckling Caleb and Jordan, then stood facing Nathan across the open car door. Chicago wind whipped around them, carrying the smell of snow and car exhaust. Her natural curls had escaped from under her knit hat, and Nathan remembered how he used to love her hair, how she'd let him help with wash day, sitting between his legs while he carefully sectioned and detangled, intimate and domestic. "I'll think about it," she repeated, softer this time. "But Nathan, they're happy. We're happy. We've built a life that works. If you come into this, you can't be half in. You can't decide in 6 months that fatherhood is too hard, or you're bored, or you met someone who doesn't want the complication. They're 4. They're at the age where they'll remember you. If you break their hearts, I'll never forgive you." "I won't." Nathan heard the conviction in his own voice, felt it solid and certain in his chest. "I swear to you, I won't." She studied him for a long moment, then nodded once. "I'll call you next week. We'll figure something out." It wasn't a yes, but it wasn't a no either. Nathan watched them drive away for the second time, but this time he had Rachel's number unblocked in his phone, and the ghost of Mason's weight in his arms when he'd carried the exhausted boy the last 100 yards to the car, and the memory of Caleb's endless animal facts, and Jordan's shy smile when Nathan had admired his drawings. Small things, beginning things. His phone rang as he walked to his own car. Marcus, his Marcus. "How'd it go?" "I met my sons," Nathan said, and his voice broke on the last word. "Marcus, I met my sons and they're perfect, and I've missed so much, and I don't know how to fix this." "One day at a time, man, that's all you can do." Nathan sat in his car and let himself fall apart for 5 minutes. Really fall apart, crying like he hadn't cried since his dad died when he was 12. Then he pulled himself together, started the engine, and drove home. He had work to do. Research on co-parenting and child development and how to build relationships with kids who had no reason to trust him. He had lawyers to call on Monday, not to fight Rachel, but to establish custody properly, legally, in a way that protected everyone. He had his entire life to reorganize around 3 4-year-olds who didn't even know to miss him yet. But underneath the overwhelming panic and the crushing guilt was something else. Something that felt almost like hope. Rachel had said she'd call. She'd said they'd figure it out. It wasn't much, but it was more than he'd had 2 days ago, more than he deserved. His phone buzzed with a text. A photo from a number he didn't recognize. 3 boys in a bathtub covered in bubbles, laughing. Rachel's message underneath, "Bath time chaos. This is what you signed up for." Nathan saved the photo, and for the first time in 5 years, he let himself imagine a future that included more than just work and empty success. A future with messy bath times and bedtime stories and scraped knees and parent-teacher conferences. A future where he got to be dad, whatever that meant, whatever it took. He texted back a simple, "Thank you," then added, "I won't let you down." The response was immediate. "We'll see." Fair enough, Nathan thought. He'd spent 5 years being exactly the man Rachel expected him to be, the one who walked away when things got hard. Now he had to prove he could be someone different, someone better. He just hoped she'd give him enough chances to figure out how, because walking away again wasn't an option anymore, not when he finally knew what he stood to lose. Rachel didn't call the next week, or the week after that. Nathan existed in a limbo of checking his phone every 5 minutes and trying to focus on work while his brain spun out worst-case scenarios. She'd changed her mind. She was protecting the boys from him. She'd met someone else, someone better, someone who'd been there from the start. By the 3rd week, he broke down and texted her. "Just let me know you're all okay, please." The response came 6 hours later. Mason had the flu, then Caleb got it, then Jordan. "I've gotten 3 hours of sleep in 4 days. Give me time." Nathan read between the lines. She was alone, dealing with 3 sick kids, probably sick herself, exhausted beyond measure. He typed and deleted 5 messages before settling on. "Can I help? I could bring food, medicine, anything you need." "No." The single word sat heavy on his screen. He tried not to let it gut him, tried to remember this was a marathon, not a sprint. But God, it was hard. He sent money to her Venmo with a note. "For whatever you need, no strings." She accepted it without comment. 2 days later, his phone rang at 2 a.m. Nathan jerked awake in his dark penthouse, heart racing, and grabbed the phone without looking. "Hello? Nathan?" Rachel's voice was thick with exhaustion and something else. Fear. I'm sorry to call. I don't know what else to do." He was already out of bed, already pulling on jeans. "What's wrong?" "It's Mason. He's had a fever for 3 days, and I took him to urgent care, and they said it was just a virus, but now he's not waking up right. He's so out of it, and I'm scared, and my mom is in Milwaukee at my aunt's, and I can't." Her voice broke into sobs. "Where are you?" "Home, Rogers Park. But I need to take him to the ER, and the other boys are asleep, and I can't wake them up and drag them to the hospital at 2 a.m. and..." "Send me your address." "I'll be there in 15 minutes. I'll stay with Caleb and Jordan. You take Mason to the hospital." The silence on the line stretched so long Nathan thought she'd hung up. Then quietly, "Okay." Nathan broke every speed limit getting to Rogers Park, his hands gripping the steering wheel so hard his knuckles ached. Rachel's building was a 3-story brick walk-up on a tree-lined street that would probably be beautiful in summer, but looked stark and cold in March darkness. She'd texted him the apartment number, 2B. He took the stairs 2 at a time. Rachel opened the door before he could knock, Mason limp in her arms. The boy's copper hair was dark with sweat, his face flushed and slack, and Nathan's stomach dropped. "How long has he been like this?" "Since I called you." "He won't. He's not really responding." Rachel's voice was steady, but her hands shook. She'd thrown on yoga pants and a Northwestern sweatshirt, her hair tied back in a messy bun, no makeup, stripped down to pure terrified mother. "The other boys are in the bedroom. They're heavy sleepers. They probably won't wake up, but if they do..." "I'll handle it. Go, now." She hesitated, looking at Nathan like she was weighing every risk, then nodded once. "There's a list on the fridge. Emergency numbers, allergies, their pediatrician. If they wake up scared..." "Rachel, I've got this. Go take care of Mason." She left, and the apartment fell quiet around Nathan. He stood in the small entryway and took it in. The space was tiny but clean, decorated with photos and kids' artwork, a sectional couch that had seen better days pushed against one wall, a TV playing something on mute, toys in bins, books on shelves, a kitchen table covered in construction paper and crayons. It smelled like kids and vanilla air freshener and old coffee. Nothing like his sterile penthouse. This was a home. Nathan found the bedroom door open a crack. Two small bodies were tangled in a full-size bed, blankets kicked off, Caleb's arm thrown over Jordan's chest. They'd left a nightlight on, a turtle that projected stars on the ceiling. Nathan watched them sleep and felt something enormous move in his chest, protective and fierce and terrifying. These were his sons. His. He made coffee in Rachel's small kitchen, found the list on the fridge written in her neat handwriting. Mason's allergies, peanuts, penicillin. Caleb's. None known. Jordan's. Seasonal, not severe. Their pediatrician's number. Rachel's mom's number. The hospital they usually went to. Emergency contacts that didn't include him because why would they? He'd been nobody to them until 3 weeks ago. His phone buzzed. Rachel. They're running tests. Might be a couple hours. Take as long as you need. We're good here. Nathan settled on the couch with his coffee and tried not to think about Mason's limp body, his fever-bright skin. Kids got sick. It was normal. But that didn't stop the fear clawing at his throat, the desperate prayer to a God he wasn't sure he believed in. Please let him be okay. Please. He must have dozed off because the next thing he knew, there was a small hand shaking his shoulder and Caleb's face very close to his, green eyes wide with confusion. Nathan, why are you on our couch? Nathan sat up carefully, aware of Jordan standing in the bedroom doorway, rubbing sleep from his eyes. Your mom had to take Mason to the hospital. He's going to be fine, he added quickly, seeing fear flash across both faces. Just a bad fever. But she needed someone to stay with you guys. So I came. Where's Grandma? Jordan's voice was small. In Milwaukee, but she knows what's happening. She'll be back soon. Nathan hoped that was true anyway. He checked his phone. 4 a.m. No new messages from Rachel. Are you guys hungry? I could make breakfast. It's nighttime, Caleb pointed out pragmatically, but his stomach growled anyway. Nathan found himself in Rachel's tiny kitchen, looking through cabinets while 2 4-year-olds directed him to the cereal and milk. They ended up at the kitchen table, Caleb explaining in detail about the platypus's venomous spur, while Jordan drew elaborate pictures of what he hoped the hospital looked like. Nathan learned that Mason was the brave one, the first to try new things, the boy who stood up for his brothers when kids were mean at preschool. He learned that Caleb wanted to be a scientist, and Jordan wanted to work at the zoo, and that they didn't really understand why other kids had dads and they didn't. But Mommy said some families were just different, and that was okay. Do you want a dad? Nathan asked before he could stop himself. Both boys considered this seriously. Finally, Caleb said, maybe if he was nice, and didn't make Mommy sad. I made your mom sad before, Nathan heard himself admit, a long time ago. I wasn't very nice to her, and I'm really sorry about that. Did you say sorry to her? Jordan asked. I did. But sorry doesn't always fix things. Jordan nodded like this made sense. When I hit Caleb, sorry doesn't always work either. Sometimes I have to do extra hugs. That's pretty smart, Nathan said, and meant it. His phone rang. Rachel. Nathan's heart stopped. Hey, how is he? Bacterial infection, pneumonia. Rachel's voice was thin with exhaustion but steady. They caught it before it got really bad, thank God. He's on antibiotics and fluids. They want to keep him overnight for observation, but he's already more alert. He's going to be fine. Nathan's knees went weak with relief. He looked at Caleb and Jordan, who'd stopped eating to watch him with worried faces, and managed to smile. Mason's okay. Your mom says he's going to be fine. The boys cheered, and Nathan heard Rachel's shaky laugh through the phone. Would you mind staying with them a little longer? My mom's driving back, but she won't be there until 8 or 9. Of course, as long as you need. Thank you. The words came out quiet, weighted with more than just this moment. Nathan, I thank you. The call ended, and Nathan found himself making pancakes at 5 in the morning, teaching 2 4-year-olds that bubbles on top meant flip time, listening to their chatter and laughter and trying to memorize every second. This was what he'd missed, not the big moments necessarily, but this, the ordinary magic of early morning breakfast and dinosaur facts and crayon drawings, the weight of small hands trusting him to flip pancakes, the way they argued over who got the last blueberry, the syrup Caleb spilled, and Jordan's patient help cleaning it up. When Rachel's mom arrived at 8:30, the boys were watching cartoons in a nest of blankets, and Nathan was doing dishes. Margaret Williams was a short, round woman with silver hair and kind eyes that turned sharp and assessing when she saw Nathan in her daughter's kitchen. "So you're the famous Nathan," she said, and there was a world of judgment in those words. "Yes, ma'am." Nathan dried his hands, standing up straight like he was meeting a commanding officer. Rachel called around 2. Mason needed the ER, and she needed someone to stay with the boys. "And she called you." Margaret's tone suggested this was surprising. "Why not one of her friends?" "I don't know, ma'am, but I'm glad she did." Margaret studied him for a long moment and seemed to make some decision. "Those boys in there are my whole world, Rachel's too. You understand?" "Yes, ma'am." "If you hurt them, if you let them down the way you let Rachel down, I will personally make sure you regret it for the rest of your life." Nathan believed her. "I won't, ma'am, I swear. We'll see." She moved past him into the kitchen, and Nathan heard her greeting the boys with the warmth she'd withheld from him. He gathered his coat and wallet, suddenly aware he'd been in the same clothes for 6 hours and probably smelled like panic and pancakes. He was almost to the door when Caleb and Jordan ran over. "Are you leaving?" Caleb looked disappointed. "Your grandma's here now. She'll take good care of you." "But will you come back?" Jordan asked, and the hope in his voice nearly broke Nathan. Nathan crouched down so he was eye level with them. "If your mom says it's okay, yeah, I'd really like that." "Okay," Jordan said simply and hugged him, just like that. No hesitation, no doubt, just small arms around Nathan's neck and the smell of syrup and little boy hair. Caleb joined in a second later, and Nathan closed his eyes and let himself have this moment, this grace he absolutely didn't deserve. When he got to his car, he sat for 5 minutes before he could trust himself to drive. His phone buzzed. Rachel. A photo of Mason in a hospital bed, grinning at the camera despite the IV in his arm, holding a popsicle. The message. "He's asking about you. Wants to know if Nathan is taking care of his brothers." Nathan texted back immediately. "They're perfect. Your mom is with them now. How are you holding up?" "Tired, scared, but better now that he's better." "Can I bring you coffee? Food? Anything?" A long pause. Then, "Yeah, actually, coffee would be amazing." Nathan drove to the hospital in a daze, stopping at Rachel's favorite coffee place. He remembered from before, from their life together, and got her a large dark roast with cream, no sugar. When he found her room, Mason was asleep and Rachel was curled in a chair too small for comfort, her eyes closed. He set the coffee on the bedside table quietly, but she stirred anyway. "You remembered," she said, looking at the cup with something like wonder. "I remember a lot of things." Nathan pulled over another chair and sat, careful to maintain distance. "How long before you can take him home?" "This afternoon, probably. They just want to make sure his levels stay stable." Rachel wrapped her hands around the coffee cup like it was precious. "Your mom she was pretty intense when I got there. She's protective. I don't blame her." Nathan watched Mason sleep, this little person he barely knew who'd already worked his way into Nathan's heart. "I'm glad you called me. I know it wasn't easy." It wasn't. Rachel took a sip of coffee, and some of the tension left her shoulders. "But you were good with them this morning. My mom said they didn't even realize I was gone at first. That's huge. They're easy to be good with. They're incredible kids, Rachel. You've done an amazing job." Her eyes filled with tears. "I tried. God, I tried so hard. But it's really hard alone, Nathan. Every day, every decision, every sickness and nightmare and triumph, it's all me, just me. And I love them more than breathing, but sometimes I'm so tired I can barely think." "You don't have to do it alone anymore," Nathan said quietly. "If you'll let me, I want to be here. Really here. Not just for the fun parts, for all of it." Rachel looked at him for a long time, and Nathan let her see everything, the fear, the regret, the desperate hope, all of it laid bare. Finally she said, "I believe that you want to. I'm just not sure if wanting is enough." "Then let me prove it. Give me a chance to show you." "I'm thinking about it." She set down her coffee and pulled a blanket over Mason's small form. "But Nathan, if you're going to do this, you need to understand it's forever. Kids aren't a hobby. You can't try it out for a few months and decide it's too hard. Either you're all in or you're out. There's no middle ground." "I'm all in." Nathan said it like a vow and meant it with everything in him. "Whatever it takes, however long it takes, I'm not walking away again." Rachel nodded slowly, then gestured to the empty space beside her chair. "You can stay if you want, until we go home." Nathan stayed. He stayed through Mason waking up and asking for juice, through the doctor's rounds and the discharge paperwork and the careful walk to Rachel's car. He followed them back to Rogers Park and helped carry Mason upstairs while Rachel managed the boys. He watched her tuck all three into bed for an afternoon nap, listened to her sing them a soft lullaby about stars and dreams, and felt something inside him shift and settle into place. This was what he wanted. This messy, exhausted, beautiful chaos. This family he'd thrown away and somehow impossibly been given a chance to reclaim. He just had to prove he deserved it, one day, one moment at a time. As he left, Rachel caught his hand at the door. "Nathan, next Saturday, if you're free, the boys have soccer. You could come, watch them play." It was an olive branch, small and fragile. Nathan took it with both hands. "I'll be there." "Okay." She let go, stepped back, crossing her arms like she was already regretting the invitation. "Okay." Nathan drove home in the gray afternoon light, and for the first time since that moment in the restaurant, he let himself believe it might actually be possible. Not easy, not quick, but possible. He'd lost 5 years, but maybe if he fought hard enough and proved himself worthy, he could have all the years that came after. It wasn't enough. It would never be enough. But it was a start. and Nathan had learned, finally, to be grateful for starts. Spring came to Chicago in fits and starts, cold mornings giving way to afternoons warm enough to shed coats. Nathan showed up to every Saturday soccer game, learned that Caleb played defense, Jordan was scared of the ball, and Mason was absolutely fearless and slightly concerning in his willingness to crash into anyone, even kids twice his size. He met the other parents, endured their curious looks and polite questions about where he'd been, felt Rachel tense beside him every time someone asked if they were together. They weren't. They barely spoke beyond logistics and updates about the boys. But he was there. Every week, rain or shine, sitting on the cold metal bleachers and cheering like his life depended on it. He started having dinner with them every Sunday. Rachel's rule: he came over, helped cook, stayed for the meal, read one bedtime story, and left before the boys got too attached. Except they were already attached, asking when Nathan was coming, saving drawings for him, arguing over who got to sit next to him at dinner. Nathan watched Rachel watch him with them, and he knew she was cataloging everything, looking for cracks, for signs he was faking, for the moment he'd slip back into the selfish man he'd been. He was determined not to give her any. In May, Rachel called him on a Tuesday afternoon while he was in a board meeting. Nathan excused himself and took the call in the hallway, heart racing because she never called unless something was wrong. "What happened? Is everyone okay?" "Everyone's fine." Rachel sounded tired but not panicked. "I need a favor. A big one. And you can say no, I'll understand, but I'm kind of desperate." "Anything." "I have a job interview Thursday. It's a curriculum coordinator position at a charter school. And it would change everything for us, Nathan. Actual benefits, better hours, more money. But it's an all-day thing. Interviews with different people, demo lesson, the whole process. My mom can't take the day off and daycare won't take them if they're showing any symptoms. And Jordan woke up with a runny nose, not sick enough to keep home, but sick enough they won't take him." "I'll do it," Nathan said immediately. "What time do you need me there?" Another pause, longer this time. "Nathan, it's all day, 8 to 5. Is work going to be okay with that?" "I own the company, Rachel. I'll make it work." He was already pulling up his calendar on his phone, looking at what could be moved. "Thursday, all day. I'll be there at 7:30. "Thank you." Her voice cracked. "Thank you so much." Thursday arrived with rain and unseasonable cold. Nathan showed up at Rachel's apartment at 7:20 with his laptop bag and a vague plan involving cartoons and playground time if the weather cleared. Rachel met him at the door in a navy suit he'd never seen before, her hair in a professional bun, makeup carefully applied. She looked beautiful and nervous, and so much like the woman he'd married that Nathan's chest ached. "You look amazing," he said. "You're going to kill this interview." "I hope so." She was already gathering papers, keys, her portfolio. "So, schedule is on the fridge. Snacks, lunch, everything's labeled. Jordan's medicine is on the counter. 1 dose at noon if his nose doesn't clear up. They're allowed 2 hours of screen time total. No YouTube Kids because Jordan found something weird last week. And Mason knows how to unlock my old iPad, so watch out for that." "Rachel, breathe. We'll be fine." She stopped, really looked at him. "I've never left them with anyone but my mom. Not for this long." "I know." Nathan held her gaze, trying to project confidence he wasn't entirely sure he felt. "But I've got this. Go show them what you can do." The boys chose that moment to come thundering out of the bedroom, all three talking over each other about breakfast and cartoons and why Jordan's nose was yucky. Rachel hugged each of them, gave Nathan one last worried look, and left. The door closed behind her, and Nathan found himself alone with his sons for the first time ever. "Okay," he said, clapping his hands together. "Who's hungry?" The day unfolded in a series of small disasters and unexpected victories. Nathan burned the first batch of eggs, but the boys thought it was funny and helped him make scrambled ones that turned out fine. Jordan's runny nose got worse before it got better, and Nathan learned about saline spray and the specific type of tissue that didn't hurt sensitive noses. Caleb wanted to watch a documentary about deep-sea creatures that was definitely not age-appropriate but was educational. So Nathan compromised with a PBS show about marine biology. Mason tried to climb the bookshelf, and Nathan caught him halfway up, heart in his throat, and had to explain for the third time that inside was not for climbing. By noon, Nathan was exhausted. By 2, he was pretty sure he was failing. Jordan had cried for 20 minutes because his sandwich was cut wrong. Caleb had asked him 14 questions about whether squids had feelings, and Mason had spilled juice all over the couch cushions. Nathan was trying to clean it up when his phone rang. "Marcus, work." "Right, work existed." "I'm in the middle of something," Nathan said, phone wedged between shoulder and ear, one hand scrubbing at sticky upholstery. "Can it wait?" "The Riverside deal. Carson wants to move up the timeline. Needs your signature by end of day." Nathan looked around the apartment at the chaos he was barely managing. Toys everywhere, laundry that probably needed switching, 3 boys who needed dinner in a few hours. "Email it to me, I'll sign it tonight." "You okay? You sound weird." "I'm on dad duty." Nathan said it without thinking, then felt the weight of those words settle. Dad duty, like it was normal, like he'd been doing this forever. "I'll call you tomorrow." He hung up and found 3 boys watching him with identical expressions of confusion. "What's dad duty?" Caleb asked. Nathan sat back on his heels, still holding the wet cloth. "It's what dads do. They take care of their kids." "But you're Nathan," Mason said, practical as always. "I'm also your dad. Both things can be true." Jordan tilted his head, considering. "Are you going to keep doing dad duty, or is this just today?" The question hit harder than it should have. Nathan looked at each of them in turn. These 3 perfect little humans who'd had to learn to exist without a father because he'd been too stubborn and proud to ask questions. "I'm going to keep doing it if you'll let me. If your mom says it's okay. I want to be your dad, for real. Not just sometimes." "Okay," Jordan said, and went back to his coloring like it was settled, just like that. No big speech, no dramatic moment, just okay. Kids were wild. By the time Rachel got home at 5:30, Nathan had managed dinner, spaghetti, slightly overcooked but edible, and gotten everyone bathed and in pajamas. The apartment was cleaner than when he'd arrived, mostly because he desperately needed to do something with his hands, while the boys watched their allotted screen time. Rachel walked in and just stopped, taking in the scene. Her sons, clean and fed, piled on the couch watching Wild Kratts. Nathan in her kitchen putting away dishes, his dress shirt from this morning replaced by an old Cubs t-shirt he'd found in her closet from before the divorce. "That's yours," she said faintly. "I thought I'd thrown all your stuff away. Found it in the back of the closet. Hope that's okay. Mason spilled juice on my shirt." "Of course he did." Rachel set down her bag and portfolio, and Nathan saw the careful mask she was wearing start to crack. How bad was it? Honestly, kind of great. Nathan dried his hands and leaned against the counter. Hard, definitely hard. I have no idea how you do this every day alone, but great. Nathan, her voice wavered. Yeah? I got the job. The smile that broke across Nathan's face was genuine and huge. Rachel, that's incredible. I knew you would. I start in August. Benefits, actual PTO, retirement account. It's everything. And then she was crying, tears streaming down her face while she laughed. I'm sorry, I'm so relieved. This changes everything. Nathan crossed to her without thinking and pulled her into a hug, and for a second she stiffened. Then she relaxed into him, letting herself be held while she fell apart in the good way. The release of years of pressure and stress. Nathan closed his eyes and breathed in her familiar scent, different perfume but the same underneath, and felt something in his chest expand to the point of pain. Mommy? Caleb's voice broke the moment. Are you crying? Rachel pulled back quickly, wiping her eyes. Happy crying, baby. Mommy got a new job. The boys cheered and the moment passed, but Nathan caught Rachel's eyes across the living room chaos and saw something there he hadn't seen in 5 years. Not forgiveness, not yet, but maybe the possibility of it. Maybe the beginning of trust. After the boys were in bed, Rachel made tea and they sat at her small kitchen table like they used to years ago, talking about everything and nothing. The job, the boys, Rachel's mom's arthritis, Nathan's business. It was careful and surface level, but it was conversation, real conversation. And Nathan hadn't realized how much he'd missed just talking to her until they were doing it again. They called you Dad today, Rachel said eventually, hands wrapped around her mug. Jordan told me. He said you want to be their dad for real. I do. Nathan met her eyes. I know I haven't earned it yet, but I want to. I want to be what they need, what you all need. Nathan, I don't need not like that. I'm not trying to swoop in and save you. You've been saving yourself for 5 years and doing a damn good job. He took a breath. But kids need their dad. And I want to be that. Legally, officially. I want to talk about custody and child support and college funds and all of it. I want my name on their records at school and the doctor's office. I want to be the person they call when they're in trouble or scared or excited. I want God, Rachel. I just want to be their father. Rachel was quiet for a long time, studying him. Outside, rain picked up again, drumming on the windows. Finally, she said, I need to think about what custody would look like. They're in school soon. Routine is going to be important. I can't have them bouncing back and forth if it's going to disrupt everything. We can work it out. Whatever works for you, for them. And child support. I'm not trying to take your money, Nathan, but I want to pay it. I should have been paying it for 4 years already. Let me help, please. She nodded slowly. Okay, we'll talk to a lawyer, figure it out properly. Thank you. Nathan stood to leave, suddenly aware of how late it had gotten. At the door he turned back. Rachel, I'm proud of you. The job, the boys, everything, you're incredible. Her smile was small but real. Thank you. And Nathan, you did good today. The boys, they're happy. I can see it. You're good for them. It was the closest thing to approval he'd gotten from her in 5 years, and Nathan carried it home like a precious thing, fragile and bright. His penthouse felt emptier than ever that night, but different somehow. Not lonely, just quiet, because now he knew where home really was. A 2-small apartment in Rogers Park with 3 red-haired boys and a woman who was learning to trust him again. He just had to keep showing up, keep proving himself one day at a time. And maybe, if he was very lucky and worked very hard, one day it would stop feeling like borrowed time and start feeling like his life, the life he was meant to have all along. Summer transformed Chicago into humidity and street festivals, and the boys' endless energy cranked up to 11. Nathan officially established custody in June, every weekend, Friday evening through Sunday afternoon, with an open invitation for dinners and emergencies during the week. The first time the boys came to his penthouse for a weekend, Nathan had a mild panic attack looking at his minimalist furniture and floor-to-ceiling windows and realizing he'd bought a bachelor pad, not a home for children. Within 2 weeks, he'd converted his unused office into a bedroom, 3 twin beds with dinosaur sheets, and his living room now contained more toys than he'd known existed. Rachel had laughed the first time she'd picked them up and seen the transformation. You know they're only here 2 nights a week, right? I know. Nathan had gestured at the play kitchen in the corner, the bookshelf stuffed with picture books, the art supplies taking over his dining table. But I want them to know this is their space too, not just mine that they visit. Something had flickered across her face then, too quick to name. That's good. They need that. The boys adapted faster than Nathan expected. Caleb loved the view, spending hours watching boats on the lake and asking questions about how boats worked. Jordan loved the art supplies and the fact that Nathan let him paint actual canvases, not just paper. Mason loved everything, ricocheting from activity to activity with boundless enthusiasm that left Nathan exhausted by Sunday afternoon. But it was good exhaustion, earned exhaustion. The kind that came with building pillow forts at midnight and making pancakes for breakfast, and learning that Mason was scared of thunderstorms, but wouldn't admit it, so Nathan had to just casually suggest they all camp out in the living room when storms hit. In July, Rachel invited Nathan to Mason's birthday party. Just a small thing at the park, she'd said. My mom, a few friends from preschool. You don't have to come if you're busy. I'll be there, Nathan had said immediately. What does he want for his birthday? Nathan, you don't have to. Rachel, what does my son want for his birthday? She'd smiled at that, at the casual way he'd said my son. A bike. He's been asking for months. Nathan bought 3 bikes, because if Mason got one, Caleb and Jordan would want them too, and he wasn't about to deal with that particular disaster. He showed up at the park with 3 identical bikes in different colors, red, green, blue, and watched 3 identical faces light up with joy. The boys tackled him, all 3 at once, and Nathan went down laughing, surrounded by his sons and their excitement, and looked up to see Rachel watching with tears in her eyes. You didn't have to do that, she said later while the boys were showing off their bikes to the other kids. I wanted to. Nathan watched Mason careen around the path with more enthusiasm than skill. I've got 5 birthdays to make up for, each. You can't buy your way into their hearts, Nathan. I'm not trying to. He turned to look at her, this woman he'd loved and lost and was somehow learning to be friends with. I'm trying to show them I'm here, that I'm not going anywhere, that they can count on me. Rachel was quiet for a moment, then nodded. You're doing a good job. They love you. You know that, right? They say it, Nathan's voice caught. Every night before bed, all 3 of them. Love you, Dad. Just like that, like it's the easiest thing in the world. For them it is. Rachel handed him a piece of birthday cake, their fingers brushing briefly. Kids love unconditionally, until they learn not to. That's why I'm so careful. If you ever give them a reason to stop loving you, I won't. I swear, Rachel, I won't. She searched his face, then nodded. I believe you. Finally, I actually believe you. It was a victory, sweet and hard won, and Nathan let himself feel it fully. But there was something else hovering in the air between them, unspoken but present. The way Rachel's hand had lingered on his. The way she smiled at him differently now, warmer, like she was seeing past the man he'd been to the man he was becoming. The way Nathan caught himself looking at her when she wasn't watching, remembering what they'd been, and wondering if they could ever be anything like that again. He didn't push it, didn't even acknowledge it, because the boys were the priority, and if Rachel never wanted to be with him romantically again, he'd accept that. But God, he hoped. Quietly, carefully, he hoped. In August, Rachel started her new job and the routine shifted again. Nathan took on more weekday pickups, learned the drop-off procedure at the boys' new school, met their teachers, and signed up for classroom volunteer hours. He navigated his first parent-teacher conference alone when Rachel had a work conflict, and felt absurdly proud that all 3 boys were doing well socially and academically. Caleb tested into the gifted program. Jordan's teacher raved about his artistic abilities. Mason was described as energetic and enthusiastic, which Nathan was learning was teacher speak for kind of a handful, but we love him. September brought cooler weather and the boys' first real experience with having 2 homes. They started leaving things at Nathan's place. Caleb's favorite book, Jordan's special blanket, Mason's stuffed T-Rex. Small things, but they felt monumental. Evidence that his sons trusted him, believed he'd be there to return to. One Sunday afternoon in late September, Nathan drove the boys back to Rachel's for the weekly handoff, and something felt off the moment she opened the door. Her eyes were red-rimmed, her movements jerky, and she barely looked at Nathan when she thanked him and ushered the boys inside for baths. "Rachel," Nathan said quietly, catching her hand before she could close the door. "What's wrong?" "Nothing, just long week." "That's not nothing." He lowered his voice, aware of the boys in the background. "Talk to me." She hesitated, then sighed. "My landlord is selling the building, gave us 60 days notice, and everything in our price range is either too far from the school or too small or in neighborhoods I'm not comfortable with. I've been looking all week and it's impossible." Nathan's mind immediately started problem solving. "What if you expanded your budget? I could help." "Nathan, no!" Rachel pulled her hand back. "I'm not taking money from you like that. It's not like that. It's child support. It's me helping with expenses for my kids. It's more complicated than that, and you know it." She rubbed her temples, exhausted. "I'll figure it out. I always do." Nathan wanted to argue, wanted to insist, but he could see her shutting down. So instead he said, "Can I at least help you look? Extra eyes, different perspective?" Rachel studied him for a long moment, then nodded. "Okay, yeah. That would actually help." They spent the next 3 weeks looking at apartments every evening Nathan didn't have the boys. Nathan drove because Rachel's Honda was making concerning noises she couldn't afford to fix yet. They looked at 15 places, each one wrong in some new way. Too expensive, too small, too far. Landlord wouldn't accept kids. No yard, weird smell, paint peeling in ways that suggested mold, bad schooled zone. Nathan watched Rachel's stress increase with each dead end and felt increasingly desperate to fix this for her. Then in early October, Marcus called with an idea. "You own that renovated building in Rogers Park, right? The one we turned into condos last year?" Nathan did. 3-bedroom units, nice finishes, 2 still unsold because the market was weird. Yeah, why? What if Rachel rented one? You give her a deal on the rent, she gets to stay in the same neighborhood close to school, and her mom. Win-win. It was brilliant. It was also complicated as hell. Nathan spent 2 days running numbers, figuring out what fair market rent looked like, and then figuring out what he could offer Rachel without making it charity. When he finally brought it up, they were sitting in her car outside the 14th unsuccessful apartment viewing. I have a unit available in your current neighborhood, he said carefully. 3-bedroom, 2-bath, updated kitchen, small patio, 5 minutes from the boys' school. Rachel turned to look at him, suspicious. How much? Nathan named a price that was about 30% below market value. Rachel's eyes narrowed. That's too low. What's the catch? No catch. It's my building. I can rent it for whatever I want. And I want my sons living somewhere safe and comfortable and close to their school. Is that so terrible? It's you giving me special treatment. It's me being their father and making sure they're taken care of. Rachel, please, at least look at it before you say no. She did look at it, and Nathan watched her fall in love with it in real time. The light in the living room, the actual bedroom for each boy instead of 2 cramped in together. The washer and dryer in unit, not shared with the building. The patio where they could play. The building playground that wasn't rusty and dangerous. When she turned to him, there were tears on her face. This is too much. It's what you deserve, what they deserve. I can't afford this, Nathan, even with your discount. Then let me pay the difference. Call it back child support. Call it whatever you want. Just let me do this. Nathan stepped closer, careful not to crowd her. You've been carrying everything alone for 5 years. Let me help carry some of it now. Please. Rachel was quiet for so long Nathan thought she'd refuse. Then finally, okay, but we sign a proper lease, market rate, and anything you pay above what I can afford goes into a college fund for the boys. That way it's still for them. Deal. Nathan stuck out his hand, and Rachel shook it, her hand small and warm in his. They moved her in 2 weeks later, Nathan and Marcus and a few guys from work carrying boxes upstairs, while Rachel directed traffic and her mom watched the boys. By evening, the new apartment was chaotic but organized, and the boys were running from room to room yelling about how they each had their own bed, their own space. Rachel made spaghetti for everyone in her new kitchen, and they sat around the table, Nathan, Rachel, the boys, Margaret, eating off paper plates because the real ones weren't unpacked yet. It felt like family. It felt like home. And when Margaret pulled Nathan aside while Rachel was putting the boys to bed and said, "You're doing right by them now. Keep it up," Nathan felt something settle in his chest that had been unsettled for 5 years. Later, after everyone had left and the boys were asleep, Nathan helped Rachel break down boxes in the living room. They worked in comfortable silence, and Nathan found himself watching her move around the space, claiming it, making it theirs. When she caught him looking, she smiled. "What? Just you look happy, that's all." "I am happy." Rachel sat on the couch, pulling her knees up. "For the first time in years, I'm happy. I have a job I love. My kids are thriving. I have a home that actually fits us. I never thought, after everything, that I'd get here." Nathan sat beside her, careful to leave space between them. "You did it yourself. I got to help at the end." "You've been doing more than helping." Rachel turned to look at him, and something in her expression made Nathan's breath catch. "You've been showing up. Every day, Every way that matters. The boys love you. I can see the difference in them. They're more confident, more secure. They have their dad. I love them." Nathan's voice was rough. So much it scares me sometimes. I look at them and think about everything I almost lost, everything I did lose, and I love them so much. I know. Rachel's hand found his on the couch between them, fingers intertwining carefully. And Nathan? I'm not angry anymore. I was for so long, but watching you with them, seeing you really try, really change, I can't hold on to that anger. It's gone. Nathan looked at their joined hands, afraid to move, afraid to breathe wrong and break whatever was happening. I'm glad. I hated that I hurt you, that I hurt all of you. I know. She squeezed his hand. We're okay now. We're going to be okay. It wasn't a declaration of love. It wasn't a promise of reconciliation, but it was something, forgiveness, maybe, or the possibility of more than just co-parenting. Nathan took it and held it carefully, this fragile new beginning. And when Rachel leaned her head on his shoulder with a tired sigh, he let himself hope that maybe somehow they were finding their way back to each other. Different than before, scarred but stronger, built on truth this time instead of assumptions. It wouldn't be easy. They had years of hurt to work through, conversations to have, trust to rebuild completely. But sitting in her new apartment with her hand in his and his son sleeping down the hall, Nathan thought maybe it was possible. Maybe they could have the future he'd thrown away. Maybe if he kept showing up, kept proving himself, kept loving them all with everything he had, they could be a family. Not the way they'd been before. Something better. Something real. And that thought, that hope, was enough to carry him through whatever came next.